for example, CHWs were involved in, got it, okay. CHWs were involved in refining your evaluation questions. If that was true for you, wave your hands in the air. Did you involve CHWs in choosing your evaluation questions? Okay. All right. The next one is community members and advisory members helped to refine your evaluation questions. If that was true for you, twist and shout. Oh, we got a yay! All right. How about CHWs tested your surveys and or focus group questions before you use them? If that is true for you, touch your toes. Did everybody disappear? Okay. How about you gave incentives to organizations who participated in your data collection activities? If so, reach to the sky. Okay. You translated your data collection instruments into multiple languages. If that's true for you, run in place. Okay. So how about you worked to make sure that CHWs who helped with data collection were fluent in the languages spoken by community members? If that was true for you, clap your hands. All right. To what extent did participation in the CHW training increase your clients' trust in the CHWs? So raise your right hand if this is a process question, and your left hand, although I'm probably backwards, if it's an outcome question. And I'll do the question one more time. To what extent did participation in the CHW training increase clients' trust in CHWs? Is that an outcome question or a process question? You can put it in the chat too. To what extent did participation in CHW training increase clients' trust in CHWs? Outcome, yay! Okay, and last but not least, your data collection activities did not go as planned. If that was true for you, do your favorite dance move. If it went exactly as planned, then you stay still, but if it didn't, dance. Okay, perfect. Thank you. Okay, Orlando, we can do the slides. And while we're bringing up the slides again, what does doing a Dynamica do for you? How do you feel now in comparison to when we started? Put it in the chat. I know I feel a little silly, but less serious, more loose, a little more comfortable. When I'm silly with other people, sometimes I end up trusting them a little bit more because we've all sort of just done fun things together. Okay, next slide. Hi, Kelly, we're glad you're here too. Okay, so for our review around what we really focused on last time, we really talked about how do you involve CHWs and community members in designing the evaluation questions. And we do that to make sure that we know that their priorities are really being addressed rather than assuming that we know what the priorities are. Whatever we end up with our evaluation questions, that's our foundation, and it leads us to use specific data collection methods and activities. CHWs are invaluable partners in developing and testing the surveys and focus groups because it really gives you a realistic sense around how is this really going to work? I so often think I know how something is going to work and it just never goes that way. So that testing piece is really important. Translating data collection tools and having CHWs fluent in the language that the people speak is also really essential. Translation holds an important role and part, but you know that when you're talking with somebody that understands your language and that you know really gets you, it just creates a level of ease. And then incentives encourage CHWs to participate in the evaluation. Okay. So we're going to jump from here to data analysis and interpretation, and we're going to turn on the recorder or turn back on the recorder and go from there. So as you know, with our little graphic, last time we looked at data collection, and we are up in here really looking at analysis and interpretation. And next time we'll look at communication and dissemination. So it is my incredible privilege and honor to introduce you to Celia Toubé and Donna. So Donna Cardenas, did I get it right, Donna? Yes. From Lane County, Oregon, which is Eugene, just south of Portland. And they are our 2109 site. I've had the privilege of being able to work with them to both develop this session. And then Celia is also part of our Washington State Evaluation Programs team. And so it's been a joy to be able to work with Celia as both an evaluator and a CHW, because she brings both perspectives into all conversations. So Celia and Donna, it's all yours.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Kathy. Really happy to be here. As Kathy mentioned, my name is Celia Toubé. I am the principal evaluator for our 2109 site, but I am also a CHW. So I love to have both perspectives, and I will let Donna go ahead and introduce herself.
And I'm Donna, and I'm a clinical health worker as well at the Lake County Public Health, and work a little bit with Celia as well.
So in the evaluation cycle, we are looking at data analysis and interpretation this week. Last week we went through, or not last week, last month we went through designing tools and ways that we can involve CHWs in data collection tools. And then this month we're focusing on, okay, so you've built the tools, you've done the surveys, you've done the focus group, now what? You have all this data, what do you do with it? And so we're going to be talking a little bit more in depth about analysis and interpretation, and more importantly, how you can meaningfully involve CHWs in that part of the evaluation cycle, as they should be included in all parts of the evaluation cycle. So I am ready for the next slide, please, Orlando. So these are some questions to just get to know where you all are at with analyzing and interpreting data. So I want to ask people what you already know. So we'll go with the first question first. What does it mean to analyze and interpret the data? So please come off mute or put in the chat what your thoughts are on this question. I'll be a little shy today. What does it mean to analyze and interpret the data? I know we have evaluators on the call and CHWs that probably are experienced with this. So what does it mean to you? What does it mean in your site? Thank you, Kathy. Looking for patterns you see in the data. Totally. What else? Thank you, Gretchen. Take what we've been given and see how it can be useful. Yeah, totally. So like program improvement, seeing what's working, what's not working. Totally. Organization. Thank you, Tina. Sarah, thank you. That's great. Determine what the data means. quantitative data can be great for doing statistics or summarizing. For qualitative data can mean looking for common themes, and then you can go and make recommendations based on the findings. That is perfect, Sarah. Jill says, looking at where data doesn't make sense, errors, glitches in data collection. Yeah, so that quality improvement, finding efficiencies, inefficiencies. Yeah, program improvement and using data to make decisions about programming. Using data to tell the story. That is so important, right? Because a lot of times we use data for advocacy purposes, especially in this line of work. And so how can you utilize the data to tell a meaningful story that are going to get your stakeholders involved? Absolutely. Absolutely. All right, let's jump into the next question here. All right, so what is the value of CHWs participating in analyzing and interpreting data? Why do you want CHWs to participate in telling that story? Different angles and perspectives. Yeah, absolutely. CHWs often have a different lens that they're looking at community that evaluators may or may not have, depending on what the evaluator's background is. Totally. Make the voice visible. Yeah, right? Nothing about us without us. So involving CHWs to have their voices through the story and through the data to let them know that they are valuable. Yeah, they are totally valuable. They know their work best and can offer insights external evaluators don't see. Absolutely, Sarah. Better understand the community we serve. Right, they're frontline workers. They work with community members every day, all day. They have a great understanding of the communities they work with, the issues that are facing those communities, and how to solve these big problems. Absolutely. Yep, CHWs work directly with community. They're closest to patients and clients and see the patient's world. Yeah, and oftentimes they're from those communities too. So not only do they have this like sort of external view, but they are deeply entrenched in that community and are from those communities. Identify best practices and areas for improvement based on firsthand experience. Absolutely. Absolutely. Let's see, help you understand the data in a different way. Thank you, Tana. She is, or they are a community leader and a CHW, and hopefully is involved in their site's evaluation. Absolutely. So to sum, I'm going to pass it over to Donna so she can take the next slide and kind of summarize these points that you all have already told us. You already know so much. Oh, 1 second. Michelle says CHWs can make the data story more meaningful to all of the evaluation participants and recipients. Yeah, absolutely. They bring that meaning and that understanding into the story that the data tells in a way that maybe external evaluators don't quite see. Absolutely. All right. Thank you so much for participating. You all know so much, but we're going to summarize the main points. Go ahead, Donna. And next slide, please, Orlando.
Yeah, so some of the values that we find in, CHWs being involved with the analyzing and interpreting of the data would be the increase in likelihood that you're going to collect data that's important to the community. So since you're out there, you kind of know what's important to, your clients in the community, as well as help assure the methods are thoughtful and intentionally framed in ways that resonate with the community and do no harm. They also contextualize the findings, helping to explain and describe the meanings behind the patterns, as well as providing, that insight to researchers about realities faced by their communities. So since CHWs have this insight, since they're, have that experience of working directly with the community. So those are just some of those values.
Thank you, Donna. And since we are doing so well on time, I'm going to pause here before I move into the instructions for our small group activity, just to see if there's any other comments you want to bring up about either your experience with involving CHWs in your data analysis process or any more benefits that maybe weren't mentioned that you can think of. So I'll give it a few seconds just for last minute thoughts to come through. Okay. Well, I think that we covered it. Having CHWs involved is great because they see things through a different lens. They're able to offer more personal experience that can be really meaningful to stakeholders by having that like very personal stake in a way that maybe external evaluators aren't. And if anyone is on the call like me, who's a CHW and an evaluator, that is a great, I think, marriage, and is able to see data and analyze data through both lenses. So yeah, hugely beneficial. And so next we'll get into an activity where we can hopefully, you can see the value yourself of having CHWs involved in analysis, because we are going to go through a pared down qualitative coding activity. And in each group, there's going to be both evaluators and CHWs working together to code some real evaluation data that our site has collected. And so Orlando, if I could get the next slide. Okay, so before I move into some context about what data you're looking at today and the instructions for the activity, again, I'm going to ask you what you all know, and hopefully you can share your experiences that you've had with analyzing qualitative data. So, just getting a gauge of where people are at. What do you know about coding and analyzing qualitative data? Has your site collected qualitative data? How did you make meaning of it? So let's go with that question first. Come off mute or in the chat is fine. What do you know about coding and analyzing qualitative data?
They're really looking at what people know as well as their experience.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, got it. Thank you.
Yep.
Our team's done coding on this project a couple different ways where like we did interviews where we then looked at the transcripts of the interviews without any codes in mind necessarily and just looked for themes. And then we also did some focus groups recently where we then went to those transcripts with themes already in mind based on the questions that we asked, but also came up with some new ones that we hadn't expected. So we've used a couple different frameworks when approaching the transcripts to look for themes.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Sarah. So Sarah brought up looking at transcripts from interviews and either like identifying themes without any like preconceived themes or written down, or going in with themes in mind or codes in mind based on the question. So both are totally valuable. We've also got Sarah, Sarah Wagner. They have collected qualitative data through in-depth interviews with CHWs, which is great. And they believe that program evaluation lends itself to a deductive approach, especially if it needs to be conducted quickly. And then keeping some themes a priority. So Sarah, can you come off mute or in the chat, write a little bit more about what you mean for maybe folks that aren't evaluators? What does it mean to keep some themes a priority?
Yeah, sure. So to keep something a priority, kind of like expanding on what Sarah Papperman said, like how she had gone into kind of going into the transcripts, not really having any codes in mind, and kind of building maybe some themes and what some ideas she wanted, and then she went back in, and then she knew she maybe wanted to talk about skills or knowledge, and she knew those were the things that she was going to write about, and like pretty much she was going to have to report on them anyway. So that's what it means to be a priority. And I think we've done a really good job of talking about being flexible, especially in the analysis. Yeah.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Sarah. And Kathy, I see your hand up.
Yeah, I just want to make sure that I actually understand. So, coding. Coding is like codes are the themes that you pick out in a like, and sometimes you know the themes going in and sometimes you don't. Is that right?
Yeah, I think that's a good summary, Kathy. For me, when I say coding qualitative data, what I am referring to is looking for overarching themes between different sets or different responses of qualitative data. So if you're asking interview questions of 5 people, for example, and each question is the same, obviously those 5 people are going to have different responses, but there's probably going to be some major overarching themes and overlaps between those 5 people's responses, given that the questions that are asked are the same. So there's like sort of the top down or bottom up approach of looking at qualitative data. You go in thinking, okay, so I asked about this thing and I'm expecting to see themes along the lines of X, Y, or Z, or looking at it like fresh and saying, okay, these are the themes I'm picking out, and not, putting like sort of laying over top the themes on the from the interviews. So I am actually going to ask everyone to code a set of qualitative data in your small groups. And so what that really means is I'm just asking you to read over the 3 responses to the same interview question and just pick out overarching themes from what the interviewees have said. And this, yeah, so I'm going to stop there because I don't want this to turn into a lecture. Is anyone else have anything else they'd like to share about your experience coding and analyzing qualitative data? And I'm especially interested to hear from CHWs that have maybe done this before. Or if you have no idea and like more explanation, that is okay too.
I might just say that I think like the term coding is like kind of misleading. Like we had a student working with our team who started this year, and we started talking about like coding qualitative data, and she got super intimidated. She thought we were talking about like computer coding, and we're like, no. We're just like looking at what everyone has said and try to like distill down what's like what are they really telling us? What's the like kind of core idea of what they're saying? And then are there like you said, like overarching themes? And maybe if we're doing a focus group, like you were saying, like if we've got like 8 different people, are there or multiple different groups, do the same kinds of ideas come up across groups or across interviews? And so like I don't know why they call it coding because it like makes it sound like
really technical.
intimidating. Yeah. I don't know if that is a helpful explanation, but yeah, organizing the data would make more sense.
Yeah, or like summarizing the data in a meaningful way, or because sometimes you do interviews and you get pages and pages and pages from each person, but you need to have some way to tell that story through the data. And so part of doing that is reading through everyone's responses, picking out overarching themes and summaries, and and distilling down the main messages from the interviews that you're doing. So when we say coding, and I think that's such a good point, Sarah and Michelle, maybe we, to make the basis for entry into this work a little bit more accessible, I think, to people that maybe don't come from an evaluation background, maybe using coding is not a good language to use because there's so much meaning there that people put onto coding, and it's very technical, and I don't have the tools. You do, I promise. Really what we're talking about is reading through a response and just picking out what are 5 themes that everyone has said, or is there anything that like is not common but is maybe interesting, or you want to dig deeper in or find out more about. So this is just organizing, categorizing the data. Thank you, Michelle. That's perfect. How does that sort of different explanation feel to people? Are people still like very confused about what we're talking about when we say organizing or picking out themes from qualitative data? And actually, maybe we should even go back a step further and ask folks, what is the difference between qualitative and quantitative data? Can anyone tell me?
I know quantitative is a lot to do with numbers, just yeah, numbers, or even, I don't know, Likert scales possibly. And qualitative could be storytelling. I know one of the big things is like, CHWs have that qualitative piece, especially being able to story tell on their experience with the community, or just summarizing program successes or program challenges.
That was beautiful, Jessica. Yeah, absolutely. When we think of quantitative data, we're often thinking of numbers, averages, number of people that do this, average age of participant, or something that can be summarized pretty quickly by a number, or a set of numbers. Qualitative data is where you get into some of the longer form narrative types of data. So focus groups, interviews, listening sessions, or even on surveys when you have open-ended questions, you still have to do something with those open-ended questions and make sense of it. And so that would be, again, picking out themes, summarizing what people have said about your program, etc. And then I will, yeah, quantitative, quantified, counted, or measured. Thank you, Dr. Tessie. So I will move on to the last questions, which is, have CHWs been involved with the analysis of qualitative data that your site is collecting? So I'd love to hear from some CHWs. What is your comfort level with this? Have you coded or looked for themes in quantitative or qualitative data, and have you participated in any focus groups or interviews? And I know that Tina came on to say that they've done surveys and community census, but maybe not so much on the qualitative side. Well, great. Then I think this activity is gonna maybe be new and exciting for some folks, because we're gonna have CHWs and evaluators working together to pick out overarching themes from real qualitative data that our site has collected. So if I could get the next slide to introduce the activity. Perfect. Okay. So this is what you're going to be doing for the next 25-ish minutes in your breakout rooms. So please read, it says the paragraph, but really there's more like 3 short paragraphs. which are a sample of qualitative data from key informant interviews with community-based organization staff about their experiences working with Lane County community health workers on outreach events. And to give a little bit more background, when we built our sort of program structure, when we were awarded this grant, we noticed that the Latinx community in Oregon is generally underserved by not only our program, but a lot of social service programs around the community. And so we decided to implement doing direct outreach to community-based organizations that primarily serve the Latinx community, to go to them with resources and some pretty light case management and resource navigation to get them more represented in those programs. So as part of my evaluation of that effort, I interviewed CBO staff about their experiences and what they thought the value of working with our CHWs at outreach events in their organization. So that is where this data is coming from. It's de-identified. I've had permission to use it in this way. And so you are going to, in your small groups, read the paragraph. And then after reading the sample data and discussing it, sitting with it for a while, work with your group to pick out overarching themes from the 3 interviews. So what are the themes you're picking up from the 3 different responses to the same question? And further, what conclusions can you draw from the themes you picked out, if any? And a conclusion could be that you need more information. That is fine too. So that is what we're going to do in breakout rooms. You have someone, I think Zoe is going to put a link to a Jamboard that has the responses or the interview summaries. And in your Jamboard, there's 4 slides. And so you'll be able to have your own Jamboard. To, like, each group will have their own Jamboard, and you can highlight, you can add Post-it notes, or you can assign someone as a note taker to take notes on the themes. But you can also do it directly on the Jamboard if that feels good and comfortable. So is everyone clear on what they're doing in their small groups?
So we're going to go into small groups, and we're going to go to each of us will go to the Jamboard page of our group. We're going to read what's on there, and then we're going to try and figure out what are common themes, or like, what did we see? What meaning can we make out of that? Okay, got it.
That was beautifully said, Kathy. Thank you. And if you could go to the next slide really quick, Orlando, because I want to give folks a preview about what they're going to be reporting back. So the goal of this is not really to have you like evaluate this data and come back and tell me what the themes were. I want to know more broadly what the experience was like of including CHWs in this activity. And then for CHWs, how comfortable did you feel being in this evaluation space? How easy was it for you to pick out themes, and how do you think you can maybe try and involve yourself more in evaluation, or in maybe helping and picking out themes from interviews or whatever else your evaluators are doing to collect data? So I want you to answer, what did you notice about this activity? What value did CHWs bring to this exercise? And what unique perspectives and expertise can CHWs bring when analyzing data? How did it feel to have CHWs working with you to code or to look for themes in qualitative data? And in what ways might you involve CHWs in analyzing and interpreting data at your own site? So I will definitely put these questions into the chat so that you have them when you are working on this activity. So I'm gonna just give a few moments for any questions or confusion. We can clear that up before we go into groups. Okay. Well, seeing none, I am going to say let's go into groups now.
If you'd like, or sorry, that scared me. Or add it to the chat.
Also, I will just say that a couple of really good questions kind of came up in our group. And so if there were any questions that came up for you that you'd like some feedback on from other evaluators or other CHWs, this is a good space to have that discussion as well.
Were there
So
any
Celia, not so much. Yeah, Donna, not so much around questions that we had, but one of the things that I thought was exactly. So Luis and I are in the same place around saying we have things about trust in there, but Rosa and Tania were able to actually say, oh, and this is why. This is where things interfere and get messed up in terms of people being worried about what impact it has in their application through their green cards. And so they would tell the why behind some of the data in ways that, Luis, speaking for you, that I don't think either you or I could have done.
Thank you.
Yeah, we had that too in our group as well. Like a lot of things were brought up, and it, CHW from halfway across the country was like, oh my gosh, yeah, like that resonates with me and my community and what they have to go through as well. And so we had a discussion about the similarities between like farm workers in Oregon and then like crabbers in Maryland. So it's like we can build common understanding of community members, even if we're not, in the same state, in the same program.
All right.
Sarah had a really good question for the group, Donna, that I wanted to make sure that people could give maybe feedback on. It sounds like they are doing a round of interviews soon, but their interviews allow CHWs to give feedback regarding their supervisors. So that is hard because how can she involve CHWs in analyzing the data that was about CHWs and their CHW supervisors? Like, does anyone have any ideas about how to navigate that potential conflict of interest or anything like that?
Sarah, is your data set big enough so that if you put it all together and aggregated it, that people they wouldn't know whose it
So,
was, or you could do one set to one? Like, is there a way to sort of cross-pollinate that?
yeah, I guess maybe that kind of gives me a little bit of idea, like, if so we have actually we'll be having 4 counties, so if we just kind of shift the people who read the interviews, so one maybe CHW from each county would read it and then send me their themes, because it, they wouldn't exactly be talking about, I guess, their supervisor. But again, we only have a very small number of interviews. Last time we only had 6, and it's pretty small. And the way people like their fillers and everything, their sound fillers, it's kind of distinct on who's saying what. So yeah, that might be a good idea, Kathy. I'll have to think about that one. Yeah, Michelle, I was also thinking about that too. We work with the state organization for the CHW certification. And I work pretty closely with the person from there. So that's maybe also someone I can tap in, but I don't want to take a bunch of their time. But maybe I think that might be the best one, since she's kind of 1 degree separated from the CHWs and the supervisors. Yeah. But thank you everyone for the input. If anyone has anything else, thank you.
All right, and so then the next question would be, how did it feel to have CHWs working with you to code data? I know we kind of spoke about, having a little bit more of insight or real time or real life experience of the CHWs, kind of explaining like, yes, one of the themes here is trust, but this is why. So I know that was pretty helpful. Anybody else have anything else to add? Or ways that perhaps your site could involve CHWs in analyzing and interpreting the data?
Hyena, you can absolutely say no about this. You had not ever done coding of data and looking for themes before. How was that for you? Can I ask you directly? Because you had said, oh, I've never done this kind of thing before.
No, actually, I do have the data of when I do the health fairs or the community census or the surveys that I do through the community. I do have all this data collected, but it's like personal data, like for me. I do not enter it in any workplace related information. I do tell my superiors what I have done, how many people I impacted, but I do not contribute to the realization of the data that they do in the Puerto Rico Public Health Trust. I do send them what I use, or sometimes they do give me forms and I do fill them out. But I have not done this because I am not an evaluator. I'm just a CHW that works directly with public and with the community.
But you added so much insight. How was it to work with our group to sort of look at this together?
A new experience, and I do a lot of social working. So a lot of the things, the 3 interview people, I have seen it. Like I told you, I have seen it in my community. The embarrassment of asking for help, of not being able to provide some special things, regular things for their kids or for themselves. So I have had experienced it with this, but I have not ever like done graphics and all of these things like the evaluators do. But I have had access to talk to people and to see how they're doing and what problems do they have accessing services and all of this. But like analyzing data, I have I have never done it like with graphics and interpreting. I haven't done it, but I do have some experiences in other areas.
Thank you. And it sounded like you kind of do that on your own already. You analyze it and you interpret that data and sometimes do bring it up to your supervisor, which then we can see the benefit of CHWs kind of working together with the analyzers. Anybody else? All right. Well, thank you everybody for participating. Hopefully you found that exercise beneficial, and I'll pass it on to Orlando.
All right, thanks. So we're gonna move for announcements. The next session for the community of practice will be June 27th. So I hope to see you all there. And it's gonna be about dissemination and communication. So looking forward for that. And we're gonna move to a quick session evaluation, and I would like to ask you, what do you like or find useful about this session today? Please feel free to come off mute and say what you want to say, or you can just use one word or many words or a paragraph to describe it through the chat. Kinda say new valuable information. That's good to know. What else do you like or find useful? Just feel free to continue to share. I'm gonna move to the second question. Will that be, how can we improve for the next session? What can we do better in order for make this space more comfortable for you all? Oh, Rosa shared that I always enjoy our activities because I get to hear from other about their works in their communities. That's always valuable. Thanks for sharing. Sarah said that she really liked the COP since we were working as a team to learn new information. I specifically like involving the CHW input when creating themes and codes. That's really good. Dinah also share that I just love the group chat dynamicas. Yeah, me too. And I love when you share this detailed feedback. That's really good. And for the last evaluation question, this COP has been applicable to my work or on the CCR initiative? Yes or no? Yes. Okay, yes. That's good. Awesome. This is awesome. Yay. I'm glad that is helpful. Yes, very much so. Yes, that's good to know. Well, I'm not gonna take more of your time and might go a little bit earlier. But I want to thank Celia and Dana for their participation in this really awesome session. I think it was really helpful and valuable information that was shared. Also, want to thank Zoe for helping us with the tech and the breakout rooms, and Kathy for facilitating and being part of this. So thank you all for being here. Hope you have a great rest of your day and see you in the next session.
Thanks all.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Bye.
All right.
Gracias, adiós.
De nada. Hasta luego.